So you can see my continuous action, I'm driving, and halfway through a sudden interruption. Hi, is the past perfect causing you headaches? Are you having difficulty distinguishing between the past perfect continuous, and the past continuous? Well, if you're looking for clarification, this is the place for you. This is Susan Broder from Speak Languages and Travel the World, here to help you improve your English with minimum effort and maximum benefit. And I'm here today to help you clarify all these complicated tenses which are used, but maybe not frequently enough for you to feel comfortable using them. So I'd like to explain these tenses to you, and I'd like to afterwards give you some exercises where I will give you a sentence, leave a gap for you to fill it in, and then give you the answer straight away. Now, because I am a very visual person, I like to give you some visual descriptions to help you understand and consolidate visually what I'm speaking about. So without further ado, let's have a look. Past perfect continuous, past perfect, past continuous, explained and practice. Do you know when to use the past perfect continuous, the past perfect and the past continuous tenses? All these complicated words are already confusing on their own. So let's understand how they're formed before learning how they're used. The present continuous is formed by taking the subject, the verb to be and the ing form. For example, you are doing your homework. They're making breakfast. The present continuous tense is used to describe a long continuous action taking place at the moment. So the verb to be is expressed in the present tense. The past continuous tense is formed with the subject, the verb to be in the past, that's why I pointed out that they are the same, and the verb in ing. For example, she was feeling depressed when she received an exciting phone call. They were walking along the street when they bumped into Tom. Bumped into means when they met Tom unexpectedly. So the past continuous tense is used to describe a long continuous action in the past which is suddenly interrupted by a short action expressed with the simple past tense. So let me explain that a little bit better to you. Have a look at this diagram. So you can see that the past continuous tense is also used for descriptions. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. So you're setting the scene in a description by using the past continuous tense. And I could say from 8 o'clock till 10 a.m. I was driving continuously. So from 8 to 10 I was continuously driving. Now, while I was driving, something happened and it was a sudden interruption. My phone rang, and rang is in the simple past because it suddenly interrupted my continuous action. So you can see my continuous action, I'm driving, and halfway through a sudden interruption. So what do? I use the past continuous because I was continuously driving, whilst for the sudden interruption I use the simple past. So I can say a complete sentence. I was driving my car when suddenly my phone rang. So I was driving my car continuously when suddenly my phone rang. I can also use the word while. While I was driving, my phone rang. Here we have the complete sentence. While I was driving, my phone rang. Instead, I can also turn it around and say, when my phone rang, I was driving. And here we have the complete sentence. When my phone rang, I was driving. In both cases, blue indicates the past continuous tense and red indicates the simple past. So after when, you will always use the simple past in this kind of sentence, and after while, you will always use the past continuous tense. Now let's take a look at the past perfect. The past perfect, which is always past, has the subject and the verb to have in the past, plus the past participle. The present perfect has the verb to have in the present, and the past perfect has the verb to have in the past. So we can say the train had already left, the past of to have and the past participle of leave. The train had already left when she arrived at the station. In this case, she arrived at the station is in the simple past. Another example. You had just gone to bed when the phone rang. So as you can see, the past perfect is used to describe an action in the past which occurred before another action expressed with the simple past tense. Let me give you a better example. So here we have the train leaving at 8 a.m. It's going to leave at 8 a.m. and here I am arriving at 7:55. So first I arrive and then the train leaves. So we can say when I arrived in the simple past, the train left in the simple past. First I arrived, then the train left. So they are consequential in sequence. I arrived and the train left. In the second situation, the train left at 8 a.m., but I arrived at 8:05. So I missed the train. And we can say when I arrived, because I arrived with the simple past, the train had left. It means the train left first and then I arrived. So when I arrived, the train had left. This explains that the train left before I arrived. Now we have the past perfect continuous tense formed with the subject and had been plus the verb in ing. Have been is the present perfect continuous tense and had been is the past perfect continuous tense. Here are some example sentences. He had been running for 6 hours when he collapsed. So for the duration of 6 hours, he had been running. And then in the simple past, he collapsed, he was exhausted. But what's really important in the continuous forms is the feeling of continuity. So he had been running for 6 hours. They'd, which is the abbreviation of they had, they'd been waiting for him all morning, so they were furious. They had been waiting for him all morning is the past perfect continuous tense, and they were furious is the past, the simple past. Another example, she'd been training since February. So she had been training since February, a long continuous action, to be ready for the World Championships. The past perfect continuous is used when we say how long the continuous action had been happening, because we're interested in the continuous action itself. And the past perfect continuous is often used with for, as you can see here, for 6 hours, for all the morning, since February, and also with when and before, as well as when we want to express a course. So, here we have so, or to, here we have to, or because. So when we want to give a reason why we had been doing this continuous action. Another sentence. It had been snowing all night, so when I went out, the white fields glittered in the sunshine. Now this is slightly different. Let's read. The past perfect continuous is also used when the long continuous action in the past stops before the next action happens. This action does not interrupt the previous one because it has already stopped. So it had been snowing all night means there was continuous snowing all night, but it stopped because meanwhile we have the sunshine, and so when I went out in the simple past, the white fields glittered in the sunshine and it wasn't snowing anymore. So it had been snowing all night was a continuous action before the next action happened, which is I went out. And I went out didn't stop the snow because it had already stopped on its own, and then I went out. So this is another use of the present perfect continuous. Now let's look at these stories to clarify. What are they doing? They're cooking. This is in the present continuous. They've been cooking since 7 a.m. We're giving a long continuous action. So the present perfect continuous, because they're organizing a party in the present continuous. They had been preparing for the party since last June. So here we have the past perfect continuous, but it was postponed due to the pandemic. So here you can see that they had been preparing was a long continuous action in the past, but it stopped because it was postponed due to the pandemic. So everything is continuous in the past. They had already bought the meat is in the past perfect. It's something that they had already done when the party was postponed due to the pandemic. Past simple. So this is the reason why they were doing something. They were defrosting it to grill at the party. And this is in the past continuous. Some more examples. What are you doing? I'm studying French. Present continuous. I've been studying French since I was 6 years old. Present continuous. Past simple. I had been studying French for 5 years before I started middle school, which means I started middle school, but I had already been studying French for 5 years before I started. Past perfect continuous and past simple. I had already learnt to speak French when I started learning the grammar, so I was always helping them to understand it. My friends in class, I suppose. Another example. What are you doing? I'm studying German. I've been studying German since I enrolled at a university in Munich. So I've been studying, present perfect continuous. I enrolled, past simple. I had been studying German for 5 years before I enrolled at university. I hadn't passed the grammar section of my German entry exam, so I was preparing to take the extra oral exam when they unexpectedly accepted me. So, now it's your turn to complete the sentences with the past perfect continuous. I'd like to emphasize the importance of doing these exercises orally. This is an oral exercise which you can then also do in written form subsequently, but the idea is to practice your speaking, and therefore if you practice your speaking doing these exercises, you'll improve your fluency. It's learning by doing. The more you speak, the more easily it'll come and more natural it'll come to you. So do these exercises orally first. Thank you. The professor speak for about an hour when the bomb went off. I'll leave a gap for you to fill in the gap before I give you the answer. The professor for about an hour when the bomb went off. The professor had been speaking for about an hour when the bomb went off. Number 2. When I saw Pete, I could see When I saw Pete, I saw he had been crying. Number 3. I. For hours when the lights suddenly went out. I had been reading for hours when the lights suddenly went out. Number 4. She was all stiff because she in the plane for a long time. She was all stiff because she had been sitting in the plane for a long time. Number 5. The politicians, for hours before they came to a decision. The politicians had been discussing for hours before they came to a decision. Number 6. I, on taking a holiday before my mum fell ill. I had been planning on taking a holiday before my mum fell ill. Number 7. They were exhausted because they, all weekend. They were exhausted because they had been studying all weekend. Number 8. The castle on the hill for centuries before they bombarded it. The castle had been standing on the hill centuries before they bombarded it. Number 9. They, for independence for over 100 years when they finally obtained it. They had been fighting for independence for over 100 years when they finally obtained it. Number 10. Steve, computers in the garage for a year before he moved into his first office. Steve had been designing computers in the garage for a year before he moved into his first office. Number 11. When I saw the boys, I could see that they in the garden. When I saw the boys, I could see that they had been playing in the garden. Number 12. The girl was so happy because she anxiously for her results. The girl was so happy because she had anxiously been waiting for her results. Number 13. He finally managed to solve the maths problem to understand all afternoon. He finally managed to solve the maths problem that he had been trying to understand all afternoon. Number 14. She, about travelling around the world for a year, so she decided to quit her job. She had been thinking about travelling around the world for a year, so she decided to quit her job. Number 15. The restaurant had to close down since a profit since the beginning of the pandemic. The restaurant had to close down since it hadn't been making a profit since the beginning of the pandemic. Number 16. The dad punished the boy because his homework. The dad punished the boy because he hadn't been doing his homework. Number 17. The man, very hard for years, so he finally achieved his goals. The man had been working very hard for years, so he finally achieved his goals. Number 18. She joined Greenpeace because their activities for a while. She joined Greenpeace because she had been following their activities for a while. Number 19. The marathon runner was extremely thirsty for hours. The marathon runner was extremely thirsty since he had been running for hours. Number 20. When Mum walked into the kitchen, she could tell Nutella, his mouth was covered in chocolate. When Mum walked into the kitchen, she could tell he had been eating Nutella, his mouth was covered in chocolate. Now let's see if you can do some mixed sentences. Number 1. He secretly just a glass of whiskey when his dad walked into the room. He had secretly just drunk a glass of whiskey when his dad walked into the room. So this is the past perfect. Number 2. He there for 6 years when he got promoted. He had been working there for 6 years when he got promoted. So this is the past perfect continuous. Number 3. She through the forest when she tripped up and broke her leg. She was jogging through the forest when she tripped up and broke her leg. Number 4. When he asked her, she said she already to New York. When he asked her, she said she had already been to New York. Number 5. When I arrived, the piano beautifully. When I arrived, he was playing the piano beautifully. Number 6. Before she entered the room, he to his girlfriend on the phone. Before she entered the room, he had been talking to his girlfriend on the phone. Number 7. They each other the previous year, but she was jealous now. They had left each other the previous year, but she was jealous now. A final word for comparison. So the present perfect continuous indicates an action that began in the past and continued up to the present, whilst the past perfect continuous indicates an action that began in the past, continued in the past, and ended in the past. That's very important to distinguish. So I hope this has clarified a few points, and I'd like you to write some sentences in the comments below so that you can practice using the past perfect tense. And if you'd like to practice further, you can download from the link in the description below the PDF with all the exercises for you. If you find this explanation particularly useful, perhaps you'd like to check out my other video over here or the other one over here to help you improve your English even further with my visual descriptions. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified next time I upload a video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!